Hey, Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in this video I want to answer a question that I hear come up all the time, and that is music theory really necessary in order to become a great guitar player? So after making thousands of videos between this YouTube channel and between the Zombie Guitar website, all of which are geared towards getting you to understand the fretboard inside and out so that you can write your own music, improvise your own solos, learn songs by ear, and essentially just understand how the guitar works. That's what I teach, that's what I do. So being that type of teacher, you probably think I'm going to say, yes, you must know theory. You have to learn your theory. It's very important. Well, really, that's not how I feel. The way that I really feel is that depending on what your specific goal is, depending on what type of guitar player you are, really determines how much theory that you may benefit from. So most people can really benefit from just little bits and pieces of theory. So you can learn like a tiny little tip, and that little tip will take you a very long way, depending on what type of player you are. So just for simplicity's sake, I've defined 5 different types of players for this video. There's obviously going to be more than just 5 types of guitar players in the world. And people are going to fall into more than just one category. But just to keep things simple, 5 types of players. And depending on which one of those types of players that you find that you resonate with the most will really determine the little bits and pieces of theory that I feel will help you the most. So you're going to come to find that just a little tip here, a little tip there will really go a long way. So let's look at each of these 5 types of players in detail now. Alright, so the first type of player that I want to talk about is the cover musician. So the cover musician is only interested in learning other people's songs and other people's solos. So if that describes you, there's nothing wrong with that. I would estimate that probably 50% or more of the entire guitar community as a whole falls into this category. The drummer of my old band was a phenomenal guitar player in addition to being a phenomenal drummer, and he didn't care about theory at all. He didn't want to write music. He just wanted to play other people's songs, and he was great at it. When we would have a party or we would go to parties, he would break out a guitar, and he was super entertaining. He just had a whole repertoire of songs that he would play, and he was very, very good at it. People loved listening to him play. I loved listening to him play. And he just didn't care about theory. So that's totally cool. So if you're that type of person, do I think you need to know theory? No. However, do I think it'll help? As I said in the beginning, I think little bits and pieces will absolutely help. All of this bits and pieces I will be talking about throughout this video. The reason being is it'll just simply make learning songs easier. It'll make it go faster for you. So for example, if you're trying to learn a solo, rather than just seeing the solo as a bunch of random frets without any understanding of the why behind it, you may recognize, okay, they're playing here, they're using this pattern, they're in this key, okay, I see what they're doing, and then you'll learn the solo in like a quarter of the time. But is it absolutely necessary to know the theory in order to play the solo? No. So you don't need theory in order to be a great cover musician, but it definitely helps speed up the process. So the second type of player I'm defining as the strummer. So the strummer is someone that's not interested in learning how to solo or play leads or anything like that. They just want to strum chords. So whether you're strumming chords for other people's songs, so you can just kind of sit around and sing popular tunes that everyone knows and loves, or whether you're writing your own stuff, you have an acoustic guitar, you just want to strum chords, sing and play at the same time, or maybe you're not a singer at all, maybe you just want to strum chords on a guitar, whatever. All that kind of falls into this category of a strummer. So do I think that this type of person needs theory? A little bit, a tiny little bit, a very, very tiny bit of theory will go a very long way if you're this type of person. And that bit of theory is the circle of fifths trick. I talk about this in almost every one of my videos, so you're probably sick of hearing it by now, but the circle of fifths trick is where you can determine what the in-key chords are for any key just by looking at the grouping of 6 on the circle of fifths. So there's 12 key signatures. In any one of the possible 12 key signatures, you look at the grouping of 6, and that tells you your in-key chords. Any one of the 12 key signatures has 3 major chords in it and 3 minor chords in it. So for example, the key signature of D major has these 3 major and 3 minor chords in it. You can play those chords in any order, and everything's going to sound good because everything's going to be in key. As an example, here you go. just knowing what chords are in the key of D major, I just played some chords, all from the key of D major. Everything pretty much sounded good because everything was in the same key. This also applies to minor keys. So for every major key, there's a relative minor. For every minor key, there's a relative major. What that means is they share the same chords, they share everything about the keys, they share all the same stuff. It's just that instead of calling it the key of D major, we're going to call it the key of B minor. So you can write like a sadder piece of music and just kind of designate your B minor to be the home chord instead of the D major chord. A little bit sadder sounding, whatever. I just used all the same chords from this key signature, but I just made the B minor chord to be like the home chord. So knowing this little trick about this grouping of 6 on the circle of fifths really goes a long way. So you can even take this concept a step further and then apply a number 1 through 6 to each of these 6 chords that are in the given key signature. So this comes in handy if you're a singer, because let's say that your specific vocal range might not work in the key of D major. Let's say in the key of D major you may have trouble hitting certain high notes, or you may have trouble hitting certain low notes. But you could play the exact same thing in a different key and it may work for your voice. So the way that this works is within the grouping of 6, your 1 chord is always going to be outer circle, center position. Your 2 chord is always going to be inner circle, counterclockwise position. 3 chord is always going to be inner circle, clockwise position. 4 chord is always going to be outer circle, counterclockwise. 5 chord is going to be outer circle, clockwise. 6 chord is going to be inner circle, center position. So that's going to remain constant for all of the 12 possible key signatures. So let's take a very basic chord progression in this key. It's going to be called the 1-5-6-4 chord progression. This chord progression is used in thousands and thousands of songs. It sounds like this. So that was a 1-5-6-4 progression. You can see based on the position that it was in within the grouping of 6 on the circle of fifths, it was 1-5-6-4. So let's take that same chord progression and transpose it. That means just play the same thing but in a different key. Let's move it to the key signature of, say, G major. All right, so we're going to play a 1-5-6-4 chord progression in the key of G major. Same chord progression, different key. If I want to play that in the key signature of, say, C major, again, I could play a 1-5-6-4 chord progression in C major, and that'll sound like this. So that was a 1-5-6-4 chord progression in that key. So you can see how this will really come in handy if you're a singer. You have a chord progression. Oop, I can't really hit this note here. Let me try playing it in another key. How do I do that? Look at your circle of fifths, see where each chord falls in within the grouping of 6, move it to your new key, boom, there you go. All right, so the third type of player is what I'm calling the noodler. So the noodler is interested in learning leads, but they don't really care to know the entire fretboard. So there's a bunch of different visualization systems that are out there that allow you to, understand the entire depths of the fretboard. Learn this pattern, this pattern, this pattern, this pattern. It could take years. One single visualization system can take years of study. So the noodler doesn't care about all that. The noodler just wants to be able to play some cool sounding solos. Let's say you're in a band in a live situation, you're playing a song, a solo comes up, the solo lasts for maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You just kind of want to be able to wing your way through the solo. You never sat down and learned the solo note for note. You just want to have the ability to say, okay, solo time comes up, play your little solo, song goes on, sounds great, everyone cheers, whatever, and you get the job done. You can do that very easily with just knowing a tiny bit of theory. That tiny bit of theory is what is known as the pentatonic scale, pentatonic position number 1. So this is what that scale is. That's all it is. Alright, so that simple pattern applies to major keys and it applies to minor keys. As we talked about in the previous section, there's 12 possible key signatures. Each key signature can be, defined as the major key, or it can be defined as the minor key. So when you have your pentatonic position here, your first finger, your index finger, will give you the name of the minor key, and then your pinky finger will give you the name of the major key. So if I'm playing this pentatonic box right here, position number 1, my first finger is falling right on the 5th fret of the low E string, which is the note A. So this is the A minor pentatonic scale. So my pinky is falling on the 8th fret of the low E string, so this is also the C major pentatonic scale. Alright, so as I said, A minor, C major, that's a relative major-minor pair. Every major key has a relative minor. Every minor key has a relative major. So this particular pentatonic box works for anything that's in the key of A minor or the key of C major. So if you're jamming along to some music and it's time to play a solo, and you know that the music's in the key of A minor or the key of C major, which is the same key signature, you could use that pentatonic box, and your solo is going to work. Everything's going to sound good. You may not be considered Steve Vai by doing that, but it'll still get the job done, and that's what the Noodler is concerned with. So one of the 12 pentatonic boxes is going to lock in perfectly with the key of the solo that you're trying to play. So let's say you can use your ear for this too. So let's say the correct pentatonic box happens to fall right here. You have to improvise a solo real quick. This is your pentatonic box between frets 7 and 10. So that's letting you know, okay, that's the key of B minor, because my first finger falls on the note B of the low E string. My pinky falls on the note D of the low E string, so it's D major. B minor, D major, that's the pentatonic box that works. That's my little soloing area. And then let's say that you don't want to stick to just that pentatonic box. Let's say you want to kind of expand your playing a little bit. Well, you can add on what's known as extensions, and it's super easy to do that. So the lower extension for the pentatonic box looks like this. And then the upper extension for the pentatonic box looks like this. So whenever you find your pentatonic box that works, you can always add in that that lower extension and upper extension. So you have your main pentatonic box, you have your lower extension, you have your upper extension, and then you can do all the same stuff up here too. So that's just a very, very little tidbit of theory. It doesn't take long to learn that. It doesn't take long to memorize the simple pattern, but that'll take you a very, very long way. So the fourth type of player is what I'm defining as the shredder. So I know when you hear the term shredder, you think of someone like Yngwie Malmsteen or something like that, someone that plays super fast, plays 1 million notes per minute, and that's definitely a type of shredder. But as far as the definition for this video, what I'm defining as a shredder, that's just someone that is able to navigate their way around the entire fretboard and kind of always knowing what you're doing based on just knowing what key you're in. So how do you know what key you're in? Well, number 2, the strummer, you can use that circle of fifths trick. You can look at the chords that you're soloing over, figure out what chords, what grouping of 6 they fall into on the circle of fifths, and then you know your key that way. Or you can take the Noodler approach and then figure out, which pentatonic box works, which pentatonic box seems to just lock in to whatever key you're in. So whatever you want to do, just figure out your key. Once you know what key you're in, you know what your position 1 is. So let's say that your key happens to be A minor, C major. A minor, C major, that's a relative major minor pair. That means they share the same notes, the same chords. They share everything as one another because they're a relative major minor pair. So I have found that my position number 1 is right here. So here's A minor pentatonic position 1. That's also C major pentatonic position 1. And then of course I can move it up to here as well because everything repeats itself after the 12th fret. So here's A minor position 1. C major pentatonic position 1. Alright, so once I know that, then I just have to start filling in the rest of the fretboard. And this is very easy to do because number 1, the pentatonic scale is just 5 of the 7 total notes of what is known as the diatonic scale. So the diatonic scale is known as the natural minor scale if you're calling the key by its minor name. And it's also known as the major scale if you're calling the key by its major name. So A minor, C major would also be known as the A natural minor scale or the C major scale. So knowing this is my position number 1, this is my reference position, I can go and just fill in some extra notes, and this leaves me with the A natural minor scale, starting on the note A. This is also the C major scale if I start on the note C. Of course, the same thing applies up here because everything repeats itself after the 12th fret. So here's my position 1 for the A natural minor scale / C major scale. And here's my position 1 up here too. So once I know what my position number 1 is, I can fill in the rest of the fretboard using just 2 additional positions. So there's a bunch of ways to visualize this diatonic scale across the entire fretboard. You can visualize it using 7 patterns, using 5 patterns, or you can visualize it using just 3 patterns. That's my preferred approach. That's the easiest way in my opinion. So if this is one of the 3 patterns, another one of the 3 patterns is going to be found right next to it. So here's another pattern to memorize. That's the second of the 3 patterns. The third is found right here. And then you're back up at pattern number 1 again. So you have pattern number 1, pattern number 2, pattern number 3, pattern number 1, pattern number 2, and then you run out of frets. Pattern number 1, pattern number 3. So the entire fretboard can be covered for any given key as long as you know what your reference position is, and then you know what key you're in. So you know what key you're in, you know your position number 1, just memorize patterns number 2 and 3 relative to pattern number 1, and you can cover the entire fretboard. So just as a quick demonstration, I wrote a solo that I used in a lesson from a few weeks ago, and it was in the key of A minor. So all of these patterns apply. But rather than using the entire fretboard, I just kind of limited myself to frets 12, and I think I went up to maybe 17, maybe 18. I don't know exactly. But, so I have my 3 patterns which cover the whole fretboard, but that doesn't mean I have to use the entire fretboard. I just kind of limited my area to this area, and then I played a solo that, a non-guitar player may look at it and be like, wow, that's amazing. But someone that knows what I'm doing, someone that says, oh, okay, that's the key of A minor, you're just kind of playing in this one small area, they'll recognize that and say, oh, okay, I know what they're doing. So let me show you this demo real quick, and then I'll show you how much can be accomplished just by using this pattern stuff. And then the 5th type of player is what I'm defining as the composer. So improvisers, composers, it all kind of goes hand in hand in my opinion. When I'm composing something, I start out by improvising first, and then once I find something that I like through improvisation, I then kind of dial it in to sound exactly how I want it to sound, and that's how I come up with my composition. But it always starts out with improvising. So improvisers, composers, that all kind of falls into this fifth category. In order to be an improviser and a composer, do you need to learn theory? In my opinion, yes. This is the person, understanding key signatures, understanding, how chords move, understanding how to change keys, understanding how to solo, how to target chord tones. There's so many aspects of theory, and I'm not going to get into all of them in this video, but this is really where having an in-depth understanding of theory would really help you out a lot. Is that saying that you can't compose a song knowing no theory? No, not at all. I used to write songs when I first started playing guitar. I didn't know any theory at first. I just used my ear. But it can help you out a lot. It can really help you get the job done. The purpose of this video is not to teach all of the theory. That would just take too long. That's what my entire library of videos is about. The purpose of this video is just to show you little bits and pieces of theory can really go a long way. You only really need to know a lot of theory when it comes to writing. And even that's just my opinion, You may be a phenomenal songwriter and you may not know any theory. So if that describes you, that's awesome. I'm not saying this applies to everyone. This is just my opinion. So, yeah, that's my video. That's my view on is theory necessary to become a great guitar player. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.